Oh, it's very delayed. Wow. All right. So now we should be recording and operational. Before we talk about images, I wanted to show you something else. I saw a couple assignments, one that I graded myself, where there were syntactic errors with HTML, and it's okay because you're learning, but there is actually a validation tool that you can use, and you can run your code through the validation tool to make sure that there are no errors, right? So not to single out anyone, but the one that I remember was that there was a student who had done a paragraph, I am stunning, for example, and then the next sentence was I teach, and it was not inside paragraph, right? So this is essentially invalid HTML because it doesn't belong in any tags. It's inner HTML without tags. And so, again, we're learning, so that's all fine. The solution would have been to put it inside tags, for example, another paragraph. But I want to show you the validation tool. I showed you once, but I'll show you again. And could one of my TAs post a link of discussion if you would? Maybe Joel, would you do that? All right, so you can do the validation tool, HTML validator. There are several of them. And then you can copy your code from your page here, and then say check. And then it's going to give you any errors, as in this example that I'm just mentioning here. So for example, if I have just make some error here. And again, you can copy and paste. And then what comes after the head tag? The body, right? And we should also create a template for us, with this basic format, so you can have it saved, so we don't have to start every time through it. But let's say here in the body, I have a paragraph, it's not really allowing me to indent. Hi, and then I forgot to close it. So and then I think, I'm thinking this is good, so let me just check it real quick. Oh, no, this should give an error. So this is an error on part of the.
What if you put the closing in front?
Maybe I'll just put a closing. So again, the HTML validator is not perfect, but it certainly should have caught this. Let's try it like that. Okay, so now it's catching this error. So yeah, some caveats, it's not always working, but it now told me that there is a problem here pointing me to the right line because I'm closing the p tag, but I did not open it. So I encourage you to use it. Generally, it's pretty helpful, especially if you have a lot of lines, and it will just save you time instead of you having to go through it. It will point you to the line where the problem might be. All right? And Joel, if you could post a link to the validator on w3.org, please, that'd be great. Thank you. And when we get to CSS, we also are going to have a CSS validator, and Olga, who teaches the Web 120, one of the teachers for Web 120, she likes, I won't make you do this, but if you like, you can even put a badge on your site that it's validated. So if you have run all your pages and everything works, then you can put a badge indicating that I like the validator, and this means that your pages are up to standard, right? 53. So you all know that if there's image on the website, an image is worth 1,000 words, or what is the expression? But you definitely want to have images in your site, just not just plain text, in most cases. In fact, the W3 Consortium is the organization that maintains the web standards. And if you go to their documentation, it's only words and words and words, and it's really unreadable. I can't read it. I avoid reading it, although it contains good information. So you do want to incorporate the appropriate images to make your site more appealing. All right, so here's an example of a site that relies heavy on images, and then you want to start thinking a little bit about design. How many of you are on the design track? About half is always right. So especially, I mean, everyone, you want to start thinking about integrating the images in the same color scheme, and they have a common feel to them. So this is, it's well done. There may be an argument that the top image takes up too much space. What do you think about this? Do you think it's effective, or would you say that it's just sort of indulgent in too much?
I think it depends on what device you look. If I look at it on my Chromebook, I only see the top image, and I might not scroll down.
So it's when.
But if I look on a tablet,
right,
like in a vertical format, then
landscape.
you see it. Yeah.
So in landscape you can see it, but if it's a portrait format on a phone, it might be a problem because people generally will not scroll down. So these are considerations, but there's certainly more visually appealing than not having an image there. So where do you get your images? Well, maybe you take your own photos. I love taking my own photos, so you can, if you use your own, that's great. But you can also get some free stock images, so you can purchase some stock images. And Google is also going to, if you search in Google, you can get a response with certain images that are free to use. I think they're under the Creative Commons. So there are several different licenses that are free actually to use, under which you can use images. You can buy stock photos. It's a little challenging because if you go to a free stock site, what I find is that they try to lure you in, and then they just try to essentially, lure you so you can actually buy better images. But especially if your site is live, you don't want to just grab an image and put it in your site without giving proper credit, right? So I will show you a few stock site options that you can consider, and we can look at the Google as well. And also when you're developing your site and you're not ready to go live, you just want to figure out the structure of the page and where an image is going to go, you can use stock images specifically for this purpose, just maybe rounds, rectangles rather, of just one color or a gradient, or there's the place kitten site where you can get kittens images in place on your site, right? So you have stock images that you can use while you're developing, and then eventually you will replace with the actual images you want to use. So getting images is pretty pricey. I never bought anything. They work with, advertising companies. So, but if you, sometimes maybe your client might have a budget to allow you to work with their images, right? So that's one option. They have beautiful stock, certainly. And so you need to be consistent and sort of combine the images with a common theme or common color, right? Here is an example of nicely designed site where different dresses, but they're all under the same hanger, so that, in my view, is very effective. It's beautiful and it's consistent. And so where do you put your images? Well, we discussed already that you're going to make, from now on, an images folder where you're going to keep the images. and you can name it images or imgs, and then your images will go there, right? And this means that when you're accessing an image on your, let's say in this scenario, you want to put the picture of yourself in about.html. And the name of the, it doesn't matter what is the name of the image. But what would be the path to your image if you want to put it inside about.html?
About.html/images/neighborhood.
You don't have to put the about.html because you'll be there.
Okay.
But then that's what I was asking you to say was, you have to say from about, if you want to access the images folder, then you need to say images / logo. So you have to say images because it's in the images subfolder. And again, you always have to remember it's all relative to where you are. On which page are you? And then relative from this page, where are the files that you want to use. So there are different formats. I guess we'll talk about it a little later, but note that not all images come in the same format. Here we have a JPEG. Thank you. That's like wonderful. Yeah, so many. We have a JPEG and a GIF here, and we're also going to learn, here we have a PNG. You've probably encountered PNGs as well. So different images are appropriate for different purposes, and I think I have some slides about it later, so I'll come back to this. If you wanted to add an image, this is what it would look like. The tag to use is going to be img, right? And then the source attribute will tell the browser where the image is located. So in this case, it's located under images, and then quokka.jpg, which is a cute family of mammals from somewhere. And then if your image doesn't load, then you want to use the alt tag. The alt tag is going to put a text on the screen if the image did not load for some reason. Maybe the server is down, maybe you have a typo in the name. And also you want to put the alt because of screen readers. So screen readers are going to be able to read and say, oh, okay, here is an image of Quokka. And also you can give it a title, and the title will show on the page. So if we get the following, it would look like so. So these are the Quokka family in question. Now, sometimes the images you have may not be the size that you want them to be. So you can go about it a couple of different ways. One way is that you can constrain the width and the height of the image with the width and height attribute. So this is going to make the image to be 600 by 450. But the better practice is to actually edit your images outside of your, before you even get to your pages, and use a tool such as Photoshop. We should have those installed as far as I know, and I'll show you how to do this. And then you make them the size you want them to be, so this way they'll load faster. So you prepare your images before you actually integrate them in your site, right? However, sometimes if you want to constrain them from here, there are attributes that allow you to do so. So I think we're just going to do these examples hands-on, but let me see, there's some other information I'd like to share. Okay, so talk a little bit about different image formats. Well, that's a lot of fun. Try again. So the preview doesn't seem to be loading. Alright, that's fine. Okay, so we'll get to go without preview. So the first format is the JPEG, and sometimes the extension will be the JPEG, sometimes GPG. And these are the images, this is the format you want to use for those colorful images, such as these here. And also the JPEG format, if your image is a certain size, it's not going to stretch out automatically if you need it to be bigger. So in fact, what's going to happen is it's going to what we call rasterize, and then the amount of pixels is going to stretch out and it will look distorted. So you have to make sure that you use the JPEG size that you want. Next one is the GIF. So the GIF format is useful, for example, many logos are in the GIF format. If it's more flat and just not so many colors, then you want to save it as a GIF. And we always, well, not you so much, but Mike Sinkula, who you might, I don't know if you've taken any classes with him yet. So he's very adamant about whether you say GIF or GIF, so it has become a joke, right? And it would be GIF. So it's not a GIF, it's a GIF. So we're missing a couple of types here, particularly the PNG. So .png and .svg are two examples of, does anyone know what type of images are those? And what we call vector images. And what it means is that they will stretch out as necessary, so you don't have to be so concerned about if you have a small PNG, it's going to stretch out if you need it to load in a larger size. And that's great. The trade-off is that they're bigger in size, so they just take up more space. But that's what, if you see a PNG or SVG, that's what they are. Okay?
What's the difference between PNG and SVG?
I'm not exactly sure. They're just two different types of vector images. I don't know exactly the details. I seem to encounter PNG most often.
Yeah.
Right. All right, let's see. Just a second. Excuse me. Okay, so as I suggested to you earlier, you want to figure out what your page is going to look like, what your image size will be, and then you want to set it up this way before you actually put it on your site. So here is an example of, this is the original image dimension. Let me try this one more time. I'll put it up. And then if you constrain the width and the height without doing the math so that they're proportional to each other, then you get a distorted image like this one. And generally, that's pretty much never what you want. And let's say you have a tiny 200 by 300 thumbnail and you're trying to plot it 600 by 400. Well, it's going to look like that. It's going to look blurry. And the reason why is because each image is made up of individual pixels. And if you increase the size, the pictures just have to take up more space so that you have more total space, and it's going to look like that. The PNG and the SVG will not have this problem. This is for the GIF or JPEG images. Okay. You can also have animated GIFs. You can also have transparency. So when an image, so we talk about a range between opaque and transparent. Opaque means that it's completely, you can't see through. And then transparent means you can see through it. So we measure this in terms of images on a scale from 1 to 0. And 1 is going to be opaque, and then 0.5 is probably what this would look like. You can see it, but it's a little bit transparent. And then if it was completely transparent, it would be 0. It is also sometimes referred to as the alpha channel. we'll do a figure caption by hand as well. But to summarize the lecture notes here, if you want to add an image to your page, you're going to use the image tag. And then the actual path to the image is going to reside in the source attribute, right? Is everyone now comfortable with the attribute term, what that means? So what is an attribute to a HTML tag?
Is it like it tells it to do a certain thing?
It doesn't tell it to do a certain thing so much. It doesn't have any actions associated with it, but that's a good guess. Anyone else? All right, so there again, but try to remember because it's important. The attribute carry additional information about the tag. So we know that it's an image, but then when we have the source attribute, it will allow us to know where the image is. And then the alt attribute will allow us to know what is the caption that you get displayed and so on. All right, and remember to size your images. All right. So let's take a look at some stock images. So for Google, all right, if you go on Google, and I didn't mean to actually search for Google logo, and then under the more, you can also use usage. You select usage rights, and there are several options. So labeled for use, labeled for non-commercial reuse with modification, and labeled for non-commercial reuse. So for you in class, you probably find to use the labeled for non-commercial reuse. And let's say let's look at images of. Let's say you're making a site for what should we say? Plants, like roses. And so these are all according to the label here, the images that you can freely use on a non-commercial site. Right? And you can also say, I want them to be medium in size, and this will refine your search further. Hotel ice cream. Okay, so non-commercial use. And these are labeled for reuse, so maybe you want to use it, but you just have to give the proper credit. So first of images for you. All right, are we good here? All right, so so here is a site called freeimages.com. And let's search for, what were you searching for? Ice cream. So here are some images, and normally, let's say you like this one, and it will allow you to download it. And sometimes the artist is going to have some requirements, such as to give them credit. But from here, you can say download. It is common, you have to sign in for you to download, and it will give you different sizes. For now, you can just probably download it like so. So I didn't want to create a login, so I just right-clicked on the image and said save link as, and then downloaded it. And it looks like we don't have a software to open the images. So it was complaining. Let me try this here. Downloads. Ice cream. Here it is. Oh, it's working now. Okay, so it opened it in Paint. What I wanted to show you though is, do we have Photoshop here?
Yes.
Yes.
Adobe. So let's go ahead and open Adobe Photoshop. I don't think I have it.
Mine says you have to open a new app to.
Go to all apps. If you search it, just one
Okay.
come up. Do you
Oh
see
yeah,
it?
there it is. Okay, so Photoshop. So go ahead and do the same, please. You can go to practice.
If you don't have it, what do you?
If you don't have it, then there are some free options. So, for example, you can use, and they're more limited. They're not like Photoshop, but let's see what it's called. Pixel Art Editor. This is a cloud tool that you can use for just making minor changes to your images. And a lot of people use GIMP. GIMP is a freeware that is supposed to be the freeware equivalent of Photoshop, but it's not really in my. I can't use it. It's just for me unusable, and I didn't want to learn their way. But it is, some people like it, so you may want to check it out. The one I like for quick edits is the pixel art here, so I'm bringing it up as well, and I'll show you both in Photoshop and pixel art. The network connection is very slow right now. Okay, so first with Photoshop, so then we go image, so say file open, and the image I have is in downloads, the ice cream. I guess it's very slow. Did it load for you? Oh, here we go. All right. So this is a JPEG image. Can I, what I can see here from Photoshop is, for example, so do you see in the top there is image size? And I can see the size of it, which is 588 by 440 pixels. Now, can I make this 900 by, can I make it bigger? Joel?
You can, but then it'll start pixelating unless you convert it to a vector. But then the trade-off is it's gonna not have as many colors.
Right. So pretty much, if it's a JPEG, we don't want to make it bigger. We can, but it would not look good. So we are not going to do this. We can make it smaller if we wanted to. So we can say image size, and we can change it to. So it's in inches, and I'm going to change it to pixels. And do you see how there is a link connecting the width and the height? You want to keep this on because what it will do is it will proportionally change the other dimension. So if I make this 300, it automatically scales the height proportionately. And you can make it smaller. Maybe you want to have a thumbnail for the image. You can certainly make it smaller, no problem. You just can't make it bigger than the size it is. And then we can save it with the smaller size, and I won't do this. The other thing I want to show you is, let's say that you take your own images and then you want to use them on the site. You generally want to optimize the images for the web, okay? because you don't want your images to take up too much space and to be slow in loading. So Photoshop is again a tool where you can do this. And let me see if they keep on changing it. So I think it's saved as. Okay, so they move it, it's on the export in save for web. There is more than one way to do this, but we're going to go with the legacy. So save for web. And so if you say save for web, what it's going to do is it's going to calibrate what is the optimized version, which is usually about 20% smaller. And you can compare with the original, and generally they look fine. As you can see, can you see difference between the original and the optimized? I don't think I can. And so it's going to save it as a GIF here, or you can change it. And then once you save it, it's going to save this more compact version of the file. And then this is the one you want to use on your site. For our purposes in the class, you don't necessarily have to do this, but if you are working with a client and just getting more serious, you should definitely optimize your images for the web. Does this make sense? Okay. Why don't everyone try to save your
Where did you get that?
the image or the save for the web?
The save for the web.
So again, there's more than one way to do this, I'm sure, but I went to export
Okay.
and then save for web. And then I would like everyone to practice saving it for the web. Save the image for the web. And I forgot to mention, if you're not happy with what Photoshop proposed, then you can actually make adjustments and make it, give it more dimension and more size, or make it even smaller. So you can change the proposed optimized web version as you need. Does this make sense? But generally, I think the one that Photoshop saves for you should be fine.
I don't have Photoshop. The computer doesn't have Photoshop. So how would I save for the web from here?
Well, let me see. I'm never. So the way you do this would be by generating files.
Oh, right.
So right now it was originally 100, so I'll say about 80. Not 80, I think what function. So that's how, and I'll show this to you as the cost too. Yeah. Okay? So go to the pixel art editor, pixel art 1,
Did you say it was safe for that?
and then save for web. And with pixel art is different, I'll show you those steps as well. I'll post a link here to pixel art. It's not, actually pixel art is not loading for me, I don't think, but it's loading for some of you. Why is that? Well, it's not loading on my machine.
You try a different browser.
Try different browsers, sure. Try here.
If I take out the backslash editor.
Right, and then from here, though, we still need to get to the editor. It's not doing, you need to get to a different,
You can try it with the editor backslash. Mine loaded from that in IE.
Yeah, I'm on the editor one.
that's the one we want to be on, but it's not loading for me. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that with the pixel art, it's what you're going to do is you're just going to say save, and then there is a little slide bar where you slide the what is it called, the optimization from 100, right? The quality from 100, and you can slide it down to about 80, and that will be how you do the same as we did in Photoshop. All right? Did everyone get this working in Photoshop to save your image to a web version? Any questions? All right. All right, so I'll show you there is a site called
It automatically puts it at 80. I mean,
yeah, so that's about what Photoshop will do. All right, so if you want to get just free stock images again before you're actually putting your own content, you can use images such as the Place Kitten, and there are some other ones as well, like wireframe images. And so I'm going to download a couple of these kittens so we can play with them and add images. You can use the kittens or you can use any image that you want, but please have a couple of images saved in a folder so we can load them and add them to a page. So I'm making a folder on the desktops for easy access. I'm going to call mine stamp. You can call it what, have a folder, call it whatever you want, maybe today's date. And then in the, oh, there's something not quite right with my workstation.
because it's going so slow.
It's going very slow and it just made might disappear maybe or
Yeah,
flash.
it happened to me too, and I had to just log
Start.
out and log in,
You
and
fixed it?
everything was done, but it fixed it.
All right. Well, then I'll have to stop the recording. I guess it's at break time. I'll go ahead and log out. It's not workable. And then in the temp folder or that folder on the desktop, we want to have an images folder. New folder, images, IMGS, and then copy your two images we're going to work with in this folder. When you download from the web, it will probably put them in the downloads unless you specify differently. So I'm going to move them from the downloads to that images folder that we just created. You may also want to rename the images. Sometimes the image name might be just a lot of digits, and if you like, you can change it. So I'm going to rename my images to kitten1.jpg and kitten2. Are you okay?
Not loading, it keeps, I don't know if it is the dimensions wrong or it's in the, I don't know how to say it.
Let me
It's
see.
like an empty box. It is an animated GIF that I don't know if that impacts,
Oh, it's just too old.
but
No, it looks like it's not there. Unless there is something going on with the server. Is it in the folder? Is it in the images folder?
I don't know if it's actually in the
Well, it doesn't have to be, but if you put it in the images folder, then you have to save images. Otherwise, it's not fine.
okay.
Okay, let's create one page with an image and then we'll take a break. So when you're working with a project where you have subfolders with information that you need, what you want to do is you want to actually set up a project folder from brackets, and then brackets is going to be able to find all the subfolders. So let's go to brackets. And I think we have done this before. Have we set up a folder, project folder? If not, we'll do it now. It's just everything is working so slowly that it's very difficult. It's making me impatient. Who else is having this problem? Is it just me?
No, it's long.
All of us? All of us except Anu. I guess we need to.
Well, I got past that.
You know what? Let's go ahead and log out because this is just not workable. According to Anu, if you log out and log in, it might fix the problem. Let's take a 10-minute break and then we will try again. But unfortunately, this means my recording is going to have to stop here. Virus, right? It's super slow. I got it from freeimages.com. Just for ice cream. So try that.